Dad decided he wanted to come here, so he came over and had a look to make sure. And when he came home, he told us, yep, we're going to move to Australia. And us kids said, where's that? We'd never heard of Australia, because they hadn't talked to us about it before he went. So he told us where it was and showed us pictures of kangaroos and koalas and stuff. And then we had to pack.
Yes.
Yes.
We had to pack. It was horrible because our family had been over there for a long time, and we were related to everybody over there. They all came to visit, and we had a hard time getting packed up and ready to go. In fact, we left a whole bunch of stuff in the middle of the room because we didn't have time to pack it up. But we came over on the Oriana, which was a nice rest for us. And as we were coming into the harbor, they showed that beautiful picture of sundowners. And all the people on board were horrified. They shouldn't let anybody see that picture. They'll think Australia's like that. So we landed and got organized and came out here, and Australia was just like that. It was very good.
Yeah, it was for us kids, it was a big adventure, because we were leaving everything we'd done. We were fourth generation Californians. So, and especially coming on the boat, that was a lot of fun. And my dad nearly fell overboard one time playing games. That was because where we were, we had the farm, and it was all developed. There was nothing else you could do. And also the government had a lot of restrictions on what you could grow and how much you could grow. And it was just, my dad didn't enjoy it anymore, so he wanted to go somewhere else. So he was looking at Alaska or South America, and then the Australian government actually advertised wanting someone to come to Australia to start a cotton industry. So he thought he'd come and look into that, and that was the start of it.
We went up to San Francisco to talk to the representative up there, and one night he brought home a newspaper. And I was looking through it to see what kind of groceries they had, and all that stuff. And I saw this little tiny article by a man called Durera that worked at the experiment station. And he sounded like he really knew about cotton. He was from Hungary, and he did know about cotton. So we wrote him a letter, asked him about it, and he sent back a great big package of information. He'd talked to all the people in Narrabri and how good the schools were and how good everything was. And so we decided, well, that wouldn't be a bad place to start. So he came over and looked around and picked out this place, and we got started. And we had to start from the scratch because there'd been cotton grown here a long time ago, but not really. So we had to organize the water and the machinery and everything. It was pretty busy. And we finally got the cotton in there. We had a flood, which didn't help any. And then when the first crop was ripe, they had a field day out here. The Department of Agriculture did it. And it was the biggest field day they'd had in Australia. People came from way up Queensland, out west, and everything. And we were talking about trying to explain, and our son was driving the cotton picker and showing him how it worked. And they were very impressed. And after that, we had a stream of visitors constantly from all over that came. And I remember a couple of times in my diary that year, I wrote, "No extra people today," because most of them arrived hungry and stayed late, and we had a great time. It was fun.
Between all the visitors for the cotton stuff and all the friends that we brought home, Mum always had extras for dinner or overnight. Yeah. The climate was very similar. We got here the end of '61 in the middle of summer, in December '61. So it was very hot and dry and just different. They had sheep on the farm, which we'd never seen before, I don't think. and that was interesting. And we lived down the road a bit in by the river, where we caught fish and turtles and all sorts of interesting things. So yeah, it was sort of similar but different. And people we thought would be similar because they spoke English, but it was very different, and we had a hard time understanding them.
They had a hard time with us too. Our youngest daughter turned 5 years old when we came through the harbor, but she was very nosy. She learned how to read and by checking on these kids. And so when they got to school, she was too big for preschool, too big for kindergarten, too big for first grade. But they had to stop there, but they gave her a class of children to teach how to do English. But they had to stop that because the parents all complained because they came home talking this funny language. It was Christmas time and they came home singing about this. We saw a star.
We saw a star. And we had no idea what we were saying, but that's what they said we had to sing. We saw a star.
So we finally got that one sorted
It
out.
was really saw a star.
But people were very good to us, and we had no trouble fitting in at all. As far as we're concerned, maybe they didn't like it, but we did.
I thought I got here in December, so we had a couple months before we had to go to school to work out how things worked, which was pretty good.
But as I said, they had to organize everything from scratch because we didn't have a great deal of money. We just came. We get pumps on the river and all kinds of machinery.
We brought some of it with us, so cotton pickers and things like that. Actually, we brought a root picker with us too, which is a kind of one. And it was actually quite hard to get. No, you're not talking. We're talking. It was actually quite hard to get the things we needed, things like the fertilizers and the things to keep the crop growing. Because it was all new, yeah, it was difficult the first couple of years.
We needed supplies like fertilizer and things like that. And we'd talk to the local people, and it'll be what they say, it'll be here in a fortnight. But it never was. So one day my husband picked up the telephone and called up, which was at Shell. And that said we were having trouble. We just need somebody that can supply us with what we need when we need it. And the fellow said, well, excuse me a minute. And he came back and he said, would you like to be our dealer? And we was. So we became the dealer on fertilizers and stuff. And on importing machinery and stuff, we had to be sure that I had to write letters to every place to find out that we were, I don't know, it was something funny about it. Anyhow, we got what we needed.
It was negative until they realized what we were doing, until they started learning how to grow it, and then everyone was fine. Didn't take long.
Well, the first year we had to take all of our cotton up to Brisbane to get it ginned. And that was a horrible. Roads were terrible and the trains didn't have any night lights on them and it was a bit dangerous. Anyhow, in about a year or so they decided they couldn't do that, so they decided to build a cotton gin. And
They got a cotton gin built fairly quickly because that was a big thing, getting a gin.
the gill was just about ready to go, but nobody knew what to do with it. So one night we knocked on the door up there and we looked up there and there was a bloody face in the window. Some guy had an accident down the road, and so we picked him up and brought him to our house. So we took him in and put a mattress on the floor, and he stayed for a long time because he was actually very knowledgeable about cotton gins and so forth, and he was our first gin manager. So that worked out beautifully. Later on, the Busters came over.
The Busters actually live not far from us in California.
They were related to our partner.
Yeah, we learned to swim in their swimming pool in California. So they were friends before they came. They came because of us coming. Actually, quite a lot of them that came out
Just up and down the
knew us
valley.
already. And because it worked good, they had the same problem that we did in California, so a lot of them just followed us once it worked, which is fun because then our friends came.
You asked about our decision to come over. My husband came home and told us about Australia, and he'd been talking about driving to the end of South America and checking out Brazil and all that stuff, but there was no road down there in those days. Or he was going to go to Alaska, but you can't grow cotton in Alaska. So we decided it was the lesser of the evils, so we came to Australia.
Yeah. And when we got here, in California, we always went to church every Sunday and Sunday school and youth groups and stuff. So we came here and there was Catholic Church, Anglican Church, and one Protestant church. So in California we were Presbyterian. So we come along and there's a church that's Presbyterian. One Sunday the minister came from Narrabri from the Presbyterian church, and the next Sunday the Methodist minister came. And most times there was us, so Mom and Pop and the 6 kids and 3 or 4 older ladies, and that was the congregation until and the Anglican church had kids, so Mom used to go over there and take us and teach Sunday school, and Pop did as well. And then when our friends started coming, they'd come to church too, so the church grew really quickly. So that was always an important thing for us. So Mom ran youth group for a while with Jack Buster, and that was pretty good. And that was
study classes.
Yeah, we had lots of Bible study classes and stuff. And my husband and I ended up being missionaries in Papua New Guinea and Central Australia for 14, 15 years. So that was fun. And our daughter's a missionary now. She's been up there as well. Yeah. And there's been hard times. But that's the times when you grow and learn. Yeah. So we've had some pretty bad droughts and some pretty big floods, but especially when we were kids, it was more of an adventure than a hard time. We'd get in trouble for that sometimes, but we used to have fun in the floods. And it's been important to us knowing God and knowing that Jesus gave his life for us and all that kind of thing, and knowing where we're going when we die, knowing we're going to heaven. That's a big thing. So my dad tells a story in his book about when he was flying bombers. The first flight he took, he was really scared. When he got back, he prayed to God about it and said he asked God to take away his fear because he couldn't do his job if he was afraid. And God did, and he's never been afraid of death, which made life interesting for his family. He did some different sort of things that you think, what are you doing? But he was never afraid. So God does that. God does things. He helps you through things, and it's great.